The equation is stark, and it hums with the cold mathematical precision of an ancient warning. If you continue to dispense your resources, your emotional currency, your stability, your literal money, in the chaotic manner the consensus world has trained you to, you will arrive at a terminus defined by 3 specific ghosts: resentment, invisibility, and ruin. And the entities you sought to anchor will simply dissolve, moving toward the next viable source, as if your sacrifice never etched a line in time. This is a harsh geometry, yes, but if a part of your inner landscape shudders and whispers, "Damn, the structure is already leaning that way," then cease all movement and listen. This is the very precipice Machiavelli tried to map for humanity centuries ago. He issued a command that, on its surface, seems ethically cruel. A ruler should never be too generous with money. He did not despise kindness. He despised unsustainable strategy. He understood a chilling mechanism that most of us desperately attempt to deny. Constant, predictable generosity does not forge affection, it fabricates dependence. Dependence then cycles into boredom. And finally, when the endless well runs dry, boredom curdles into sharp anger directed precisely at the source that ceased to sustain them. You have felt this tremor in your own walls. Perhaps you were the designated ATM of the family, the permanent tab picker-upper at the communal table, the spontaneous underwriter of a co-worker's recurring, mysterious shortfalls. Initially, there was a quiet, warm resonance. You felt like the anchor, the organized one, the capable entity. Then, the atmospheric pressure shifted. The specific frequency of "thank you so much" mutated into the flat, demanding static of "hey, can you just..." and "you know I'm good for it." Inside your own core, the volume of your spirit was steadily lowered. You felt smaller, extracted, and sealed inside a trap of your own making. Here is the final agonizing irony of the system. The collective world will label you selfish the exact moment you cease your self-sacrificial hemorrhage. This is why the topic carries the unsettling static of taboo. Never be generous sounds like an oath taken by a fictional villain. But you must stay with the principle. Machiavelli was not commanding you to morph into a monster of misanthropy. He was issuing a fundamental warning. If you do not meticulously control the flow and purpose of your resources, other entities will gain control of your life through those resources. And in the end, they will not honor you for the self-annihilation. They will only resent you when the faucet stops dripping. The mathematical principle of liberality. Let us decode Machiavelli's instruction on liberality, generosity, through a stark, modern calculation. He stated that a leader attempting to buy the title of generous will deplete his reserves too quickly, eventually leaving him with only one option: aggressive taxation or forceful extraction from his own people. The populace may chant his praise at the opening, but when the bill of sustainability comes due, their praise transforms into cold, immediate hatred. The leader ends up poor, desperate, and unpopular. Conversely, the leader who is precise, even appearing stingy or careful with his money, is met with initial criticism. Yet over time, this careful foundation allows him to stabilize the collective, handle genuine emergencies without collapsing the economy, and avoid squeezing his people for unnecessary funds. In the grand calculation of time, the people grant the careful leader far deeper respect and stability. You are not ruling the Renaissance city of Florence. You are managing the complexity of modern survival, the mortgage, the debts, the frantic scramble to fund your own future, or the delicate business of escaping the financial sinkholes of your past decade. But the law remains: if your generosity is not mathematically sustainable, it is not generosity. It is a carefully tailored, kind-looking uniform for self-sabotage. The hidden cost of your silence. We must audit the real destinations of your money, not the grand, brag-worthy donations that look good on a social ledger, but the subterranean reality of your life, the recurring emergency fund for the perpetually chaotic relative, the friend whose card reader mysteriously malfunctions at every single dinner, the CO worker who relies on your predictable "don't worry, I got it" at the coffee counter, Or perhaps most structurally damaging, the relationship where you are the sole engine of the shared lifestyle, funding the lion's share of bills, buying elaborate peace offerings to prevent nagging, or purchasing gifts merely to ensure their emotional continued presence and keep the conflict reactor safely contained. On the flat paper of a ledger, you appear noble, giving, and magnanimous. In the terrifying geometry of reality, you are funding their temporary comfort and your own permanent, expensive silence. Machiavelli would view this process and declare, "This is precisely the algorithm for how a good person willingly surrenders their own power." You are intentionally bleeding out your core resources, not on strategic construction, not on securing your own fortress, and not on becoming economically invulnerable. Instead, the resources are spent on maintaining the temporary external pleasure of other entities. The moment your resource flow constricts, they turn, not always with dramatic malice, but often with cold, immediate finality. They simply retract their presence. They locate the next viable source of flow. They whisper that you are the one who has changed, and you are left standing in the ruins of your own castle, with a smaller bank account and a massive leaden knot in your core. Chunk 2, the fortress, the bricks, and the fear. What is the necessary alternative? Must you now adopt the metallic sheen of a cold, miserly robot, closing the gates of your life to any and all requests for aid? No. The lesson is sharper, more precise, and more surgical than simple misanthropy. The true alternative is to cease using generosity as a transaction to purchase love, approval, or ephemeral peace. You must strategically redirect your resources to fortify your own power, secure your own future, and protect your long-term sanity. This transition from reactive giving to strategic investing begins with a necessary, painful admission, a truth that stings the moral ego. You must admit where your kindness is merely fear in disguise. Examine the hidden architecture beneath your generosity. Is it fear of conflict? Fear of being designated selfish? Fear of losing the fragile thread of relationship? Fear of someone's directed anger? You routinely deploy your wallet, your primary resource tool, because you are genuinely terrified of the consequences, of deploying your voice to simply say no. And that very fear is the exact mechanism through which others gain control of your actions. The mental picture, the castle, and the bricks. Let us construct a simple, powerful mental visualization. Imagine your entire life, your stability, your identity, your capacity for action as an impregnable castle. Your income, your liquid savings, your long-term investments, your unique, indispensable skills, and your core ability to earn money. This entire system is your formidable fortress. Money is not the whole structure, but it is one of the essential load-bearing walls. If those walls are fractured, breached, or structurally compromised, any opportunistic entity can walk in and impose their will upon you. When you engage in chaotic, unplanned, and unsourced generosity, you are engaging in an act of profound self-sabotage. You are literally dismantling the bricks of your own defensive wall and handing them out to other people. Here, take this brick. I hope you like me. I hope this means you won't leave. I hope you see how deeply good I am. Eventually, your wall is lowered past the point of functional defense. When the inevitable external storm hits, be it a medical emergency, sudden job loss, market correction, or a relational rupture, you possess no stable structure to protect yourself. This is where Machiavelli delivers his most brutal, unvarnished honesty. Entities respect strength and stability far more than they respect softness. They may enthusiastically enjoy your softness. They may happily consume the benefits of your weakness, but they only feel truly safe around your strategic strength. They will ultimately rely on and respect the one who has secured their own life first. Building the new rules, strategic generosity. How do you translate this cold analysis into ethical, functional practice without becoming bitter or retreating into permanent isolation? You establish non-negotiable, real-world rules that govern the flow of your resources. Rule 1. Never be generous with money you cannot comfortably lose. This may sound mathematically obvious, yet observe how often the emotional self violates this principle. If the act of helping someone else means sacrificing your own future stability, preventing you from meeting necessary obligations, building your necessary emergency buffer, or funding your own inevitable future, you are not acting from nobility. You are intentionally creating unstable fragility so that another entity may experience momentary comfort. This is not honorable, it is structurally unsound. The concept of your oxygen mask first is not a statement of selfishness, it is the fundamental rule of sustainable strategy. A financially fragile person cannot be an effective, long-term savior to anyone. Rule 2. Be generous with low-cost, high-value resources and cautious with high-cost, low-impact resources. The best forms of generosity often involve dispensing resources that cost you little but provide immense, transformative value to the recipient. This includes sharing specialized information, strategically connecting them to your established network of opportunities, guiding them toward a shift in perspective, or offering the profound attention of your time and encouragement. These acts are priceless to them, but do not drain the physical resources of your fortress wall. Be profoundly cautious with the high-cost transactions that barely move the needle on their long-term stability. Rule 3. If your generosity is invisible, it fails to build leverage. This is Machiavelli's insight into public perception applied to personal life. If you choose to make a significant sacrifice, ensure that the action clearly establishes a boundary and a narrative. The action must be defined as an exception, not a silent, unspoken new job description. For example, instead of covertly covering a sibling's debt over and over, you execute the help with defined parameter. I will cover this bill this one time so you can reset the clock, but you must establish a functional plan going forward, as I cannot operate as your long-term safety net. My own fortress requires stability. You are not merely handing over money, you are explicitly defining a new reality. Chunk 3. Don't fund laziness and the price tag of avoidance. We continue the construction of the new fortress rules, moving from passive defense to active strategy. Rule 4. Never fund the continuation of laziness or chronic dysfunction. If an entity's pattern is demonstrably defined by poor, repeatable decisions, an unending state of crisis, and a persistent, measurable lack of genuine effort toward necessary change, your infusion of money will not act as a fixative. It will function as an accelerant. It will deepen the rut and reward their lack of strategic planning. Think back across your history. Is there a repeating figure in your life who exists in an eternal state of almost out of it, always on the verge of solvency, but never quite reaching it? You have likely extended loans or outright gifts 2, 3, or 7 times. They offer the same fervent, dramatic promise. This is the absolute last time, I swear. Your compassionate self desires to believe them because you care deeply, but the cold calculus of patterns does not submit to emotional desire. Machiavelli would issue the blunt, essential declaration: you are not facilitating their growth, you are strategically rewarding their lack of discipline. Real, constructive help is never a blank check. It is always tethered to accountability. If there is no measurable change in behavior or structure resulting from your aid, then the aid itself is merely a tool of enabling, and you must withdraw that dangerous instrument. Your responsibility is to yourself first, and secondarily to the system's structural integrity. No. T to the comfort of the entity caught within the failing pattern. Rule 5. Never let generosity replace the necessity of hard conversation. The path of least resistance is frequently paved with cash. It is computationally easier to throw currency at a problem than it is to look someone in the eye and say, "No, I am fundamentally not okay with the current geometric direction of this relationship." You pay to purchase a momentary illusion of peace. You buy the excessively nice, distracting gift instead of addressing the growing structural distance within the relationship. You cover the financial shortfall. Instead of initiating the difficult dialogue, we require an entirely different sustainable plan. You fund the weekend retreat instead of dealing with the massive reservoir of fatigue and deep resentment that has accumulated in your own core. This behavior is not the embodiment of kindness. It is an expensive form of avoidance with a quantifiable price tag. The identity crisis, stepping off the pedestal, the shift from the sponge to the architect, is not a simple choice. It is an identity crisis. For years, your internal self-definition has been tethered to the role of the reliable one, the anchor, the provider everyone could structurally lean on. There is a deep psychological comfort and even a quiet pride in wearing that mantle. When you give, you feel seen, you feel necessary. Your internal signal lights up, confirming that your existence has objective value because people need you. The question that introduces the void: who are you if you are not perpetually rescuing people? You must deliberately evolve into a superior identity. Aim to become the entity whose internal life is so stable, so rigorously strong, and so well managed that your presence changes lives more profoundly than your wallet ever could. You must become the friend who delivers the necessary, uncomfortable truth, the parent who provides wisdom and structure, not merely ceaseless cash flow, the partner who helps cultivate a shared, sustainable future rather than simply paying for a fragile present illusion. The colleague who shares strategic insight and opens previously sealed doors, rather than just covering the bill at the communal table. Redrawing the line in real time. Let us zoom in on specific repeatable field scenarios and walk through the mechanics of Machiavellian generosity, that is, action guided by strategy, not fear. Scenario: the coworker and the tab. You are at work, financially secure but not excessively wealthy. A coworker begins a predictable ritual. You got this round, right? Initially, you absorb the small cost. Soon, it scales to lunches, then forgotten wallets, then the subtle collective glance when the group bill arrives. Your internal tension peaks. Non-offering equals cheapness. Offering equals exploitation. The old self laughs, pays, absorbs the quiet resentment, and gossips about the unfairness later. The new self, the architect, breaks the pattern calmly. The next time the bill arrives, you allow the silence to sit for 2 seconds, a necessary, uncomfortable pause. Then, you state the new rule simply: I've covered a lot lately. I'm just doing my specific share today. No expansive speech is required. You have drawn the line. If they push, "Oh, come on, you always handle us," you respond with an amicable, closed smile: "Yes, and that was good, but I'm managing my resources differently now. We can just split it evenly." You will experience a sharp spike of internal awkwardness, but the action is strategically sound. You have refused to purchase their approval, demanding they treat you as an equal adult, not a predictable vending machine. Chunk 4: the sibling, the partner, and the uncomfortable reality. We continue applying the principles of Machiavellian stability to the arenas of life where the emotional stakes and the financial drainage are highest: family and intimate relationships. Scenario: the sibling and the leaky boat. Picture a pervasive family dynamic. A sibling exists in a state of chronic financial entropy, always in trouble, constantly just short of crisis. They call you stressed, embarrassed, sometimes utilizing the calculated leverage of tears. "I just need help with this one final thing." You have historically acquiesced, fueled by obligation and the desire to dissolve the immediate guilt of saying no. However, immediately after sending the funds, you lie awake, internalizing the stress. How is this my responsibility? How does this burden keep returning to my life? The old self sends the funds, aggressively pushes down the resultant resentment, and engages in the futile hope that this specific instance will finally be the last time the dysfunction sticks. The new self, the architect, responds with robust empathy, but simultaneously introduces structure. "I am truly sorry you are navigating this stress. I cannot continue to bail you out financially, as it destabilizes my own essential structure, but I am absolutely willing to sit down with you and meticulously review your budget or help you identify necessary systemic changes. If you choose to offer limited assistance, it must be rigidly conditional. I can cover this single bill, but in exchange, we are setting up an explicit, written plan so that I am removed as your primary emergency fund. My own fortress requires solid, non-negotiable boundaries too. Notice the critical distinction. You remain a supportive, functional person, but you have resolutely refused to sacrifice your own structurally sound fortress merely to patch a leak in someone else's perpetually leaky boat. You replace reactive rescue with strategic support that demands accountability, scenario, dating, relationships, and the illusion of connection. Consider your intimate relationships. Have you tacitly assumed the role of the perpetual funder? Do you suspect or know that your spending is a necessary component of the connection, a prerequisite for their continued engagement? If this arrangement aligns with your values and your budget surplus, the calculation is simple. However, the requirement is brutal honesty. Do you ever feel the quiet burn of resentment? Does the voice whisper, "If I stopped funding this shared lifestyle, what geometric shape would remain between us?" If the relationship's fundamental glue is your money flow, it is not a genuine connection. It is a transactional contract, tacitly agreed upon by them, signed only by your wallet. The new self utilizes money as a tool to reveal the truth sooner, not to obscure it later. Suggest more low-cost, high-connection activities. Observe the immediate emotional reaction. When you propose, "Let's do something simple and free this weekend." Notice the subtle shift in their facial geometry when you suggest, "Hey, should we split this one evenly?" If their interest, investment, or emotional enthusiasm drops the instant your wallet closes, it is profoundly better to recognize that harsh truth immediately, rather than discovering it years and thousands of dollars later when the financial and emotional infrastructure is fully committed to a false lifestyle. The uncomfortable reality, the protest and the confirmation. We must confront the most difficult social cost. When you reform an established pattern, people will become annoyed, confused, and sometimes overtly angry. This reaction will be loudest and most aggressive from the entities who benefited most significantly from the old you. Machiavelli articulated this phenomenon with cold accuracy. When you set out to introduce change, the people who lose their special advantages will fight you with the desperation of fear, while the people who stand to gain from the change will offer only lukewarm support, if they offer any support at all. Applied to the currency of generosity, this translates directly. The people who relied upon your predictable financial accommodation will protest the loudest when you stop. Do not interpret their protest as a sign that you are wrong. Interpret their protest as confirmation that you have successfully stopped playing the self-sacrificial role they assigned to you. You are now acting according to the principles of your own fortress. The generosity audit, from caretaker to strategist, your next crucial tactical assignment, is to audit your past generosity like a financial strategist, not like a guilty caretaker. Mentally retrieve a list of the last 10 times you extended money or paid for something significant for another person, excluding routine obligations. Now, subject each instance to a sharp series of strategic inquiries. Impact versus reset. Did this specific gift or loan fundamentally initiate structural progress, or did it merely temporarily reset them back to zero, ready for the next crisis cycle? Internal cost. Did I feel measurably stronger or weaker after executing this transaction? Avoidance tax. Was the primary purpose of this payment to avoid initiating a necessary hard conversation or confrontation? Pattern confirmation. Is this transaction fitting into a recognizable repeating pattern of reliance or crisis? Entitlement versus gratitude. Does this entity exhibit genuine, responsible gratitude, or do they manifest subtle entitlement and an endless supply of excuses? You will quickly find the fissure. Some moments were acts of genuine, value-aligned kindness, worth every resource expended. Others were transactions where you were attempting to purchase fleeting peace, fleeting love, or simply buying time. These are the critical points where you must reclaim your relinquished power. The validation of the kind person. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, it is vital to perform a cognitive reframing. This does not signify weakness or stupidity. It confirms profound care. It means that somewhere in your foundational history, you were taught that your inherent value was inextricably linked to solving, fixing, or mitigating the problems of others, usually at a punishing cost to your own stability. The collective may have praised you for being the responsible one or mature for your age, instilling the core fear that if you cease giving, you cease being good. The ultimate truth is infinitely simpler and more liberating. Good people have clearly defined limits. Healthy people operate with explicit budgets. Strong people know when and how to deliver a clean no. And if any entity attempts to leverage your kindness against you to force your compliance, they were never respecting the true source of your character in the first place. Chunk 5, the final synthesis and the investor's mindset. So, where does genuine generosity find its legitimate strategic place in this newly secured fortress? Are you truly commanded to be permanently cold? Here is the essential Machiavellian twist. You should almost never be generous impulsively with your money, but you must be profoundly generous intentionally with your life. Your generosity must now be directed as an investor, not as a desperate savior. When you deploy resources, do so in ways that perfectly align with your fundamental values, and most critically, your long-term, non-negotiable financial stability. Invest in belief, giving strategically to a cause you genuinely believe in. That's power alignment. Invest in accountability, helping an entity that has proven they are responsible, have hit a verifiable rough patch, and have a clear plan for recovery, provided it fits your budget surplus. That's calculated support. Invest in partnership, supporting your partner's long-term educational goals with a clear shared financial plan. That is partnership strategy, not martyrdom. Machiavelli's true final warning is not about the act of giving, it is about the structural integrity of your core. Do not allow your desperate, innate desire to be perceived as generous to strip you of the very resources that are necessary for you to live freely and securely. A Renaissance prince who empties his treasury to buy public applause ends up begging or is forced to steal. A modern adult who empties their accounts to purchase the title of hero ends up exhausted, profoundly resentful, and quietly terrified every time their phone signals a new bill. The unshakable fortress, a new identity. Ask yourself this question and allow its weight to settle. What fundamental aspects of my life would change if, for the next year, my primary job was to become financially and psychologically unshakable? Not Instagram rich, not superficially showing off, just genuinely unshakable. Money secured in the bank, no random undeclared obligations you never formally agreed. 2. Clearly defined boundaries. No subscription to other people's perpetually recurring financial drama. This commitment will likely mean a few specific people receive less from you in the short term. This is the necessary cost of building. But it means that when the people you truly love, your integrated core circle, need you in a real, verifiable crisis, in a way that truly matters, you actually possess the capacity to step up without simultaneously collapsing your own entire structure. This is the non-negotiable trade-off: short-term, ephemeral approval versus long-term self-sovereign power. Endless small costs, coffee tabs, forgotten lunches, versus achieving real, permanent financial safety. Attempting to keep everyone temporarily happy versus constructing a life you are not constantly stressed about managing. The transition, starting with silence. If a part of you hears this strategic declaration and thinks, okay, this all sounds mathematically correct, but I am terrified to begin, recognize that feeling as normal. It is the friction of rewiring years of people-pleasing programming. Start small. Start with silence, the pause. The next time someone hints that you should reflexively pay, pause for precisely 2 seconds longer than you normally would. Let that tiny, uncomfortable silence exist in the atmosphere. Observe their immediate reaction. The clean no. The next time someone asks for money in a way that feels fundamentally off, state simply, I am not able to do that right now, but I hope you find a clear path through. The first time you execute a clean no, you will feel internally messy and anxious. Allow it. You are severing a toxic energetic cord. Over time, an inevitable sorting process occurs. The entities who only valued you for your spontaneous generosity will slowly fade. Let them. They were not invested in your being. The entities who truly value you as a person will adjust. They may test the new boundary, but they will stay, recognizing your new integrated strength, and most importantly, you will feel your spine again. You will check your bank account and feel less chronic anxiety. Your life choices will be driven by your own strategic goals, not controlled by the fearful anticipation of who might need to borrow money next month. When you do decide to be generous, it will feel genuinely, deeply good again, because it originates from a place of choice, not structural obligation. You will pick your strategic moments, funding your parents' planned trip, giving a painful but genuinely meaningful gift to someone who needs a hand up, not a perpetual handout, and has proven they will utilize it. Well, that is real generosity, quiet, strategic, powerful. It does not shatter your fortress, it is built only from the surplus of it. The final question of strength versus fear. When you hear the phrase, never be generous, in this strategic context, translate it through this final filter. Never let generosity be the reason you are weak. Never let money dispensed out of fear steal the stable future you are rigorously trying to build. Never let your need to be seen as a good person override your fundamental responsibility to be a strong person. You deserve a life where your essential kindness is not an exploitable weakness used against you. You deserve to be respected, not for how much you can give away, but for how well you have built and fiercely protected what is yours. So, the next time your hand moves toward your wallet out of instinctual reflex, pause. Ask yourself this singular, critical question: am I doing this from a position of strength, or am I acting from a place of fear? If the answer is fear, you know exactly what necessary action you must take. Chunk 6, the Machiavellian twist, final power, and the uncontrolled trap, extended. Your understanding of this dynamic must culminate in the final synthesis of the Machiavellian twist. You have performed the strategic audit and enacted the new rules. Now, you must integrate the final, powerful truth about your reformed generosity and understand its implications for your long-term legacy and psychological freedom. The role of the investor, not the savior. You must ruthlessly adopt the singular identity of the investor, permanently discarding the costly, draining role of the savior. When you deploy any resource, be it emotional attention, hard-won wisdom, or cold currency, you are not seeking gratitude. You are seeking a return on investment that aligns with your core values and absolute stability. Generous with time, be generous with your focused, undistracted attention when you're with your children, spouse, or core relationships, instead of perpetually drowning in the infinite distraction of your phone or the anxieties of others. Debts. Generous with wisdom. Be generous with your hard-won wisdom to the entity who genuinely signals effort and a verifiable desire to learn and grow, not to the one who only seeks an excuse or a handout. Generous with forgiveness. Be generous with forgiveness and understanding when someone truly, authentically owns their mistakes, accepts accountability for their actions, and demonstrates measurable change. And yes, remain financially generous, but always from a place of surplus and strategic choice. This financial choice must be an intentional action performed after all your own foundational needs are met, not a reactive hemorrhage driven by fear or obligation. Machiavelli's true final warning is simple and profound. Do not allow your desire to be seen as generous to strip you of the resources that are necessary for you to live freely and securely, defined by your own sovereign will. A prince who empties his treasury to buy temporary public applause ends up weak, despised, and internally compromised. A modern adult who empties their accounts to purchase the title of hero ends up exhausted, perpetually resentful, and quietly terrified every time their phone signals a new, unavoidable obligation. The unshakable fortress, the strategic trade-off. Your primary mandate now is to become financially and psychologically unshakable. This is not about competitive wealth, it is about absolute structural integrity. Ask yourself this question, and allow its cold, precise weight to settle. What fundamental aspects of my life would change if I committed to becoming unshakable for the next year, prioritizing stability above all external approval? It means a few specific people receive less from you immediately. This is the calculated, necessary friction of boundary setting, but it guarantees that when the people you truly love, your integrated core circle, need you. During a real structural crisis, you actually possess the capacity to step up without simultaneously collapsing your own entire fortress structure. This is the ultimate, non-negotiable trade, short-term, ephemeral, purchased approval versus long-term, self-sovereign, unshakable power. Swapping endless small costs, coffee tabs, forgotten lunches, for achieving real, permanent financial and emotional safety. Ceasing the futile effort to keep everyone temporarily happy versus constructing a life you are not constantly terrified about managing. The mechanics of transition, starting with silence and sovereignty. If the idea of this shift still generates paralyzing fear, recognize that feeling as the necessary resistance of old programming. You are fundamentally rewiring years of emotional calculus. Start small. Start with silence. Start with the truth. The pause, the next time someone implies, hints, or outright asks that you should reflexively pay. Pause for a deliberate 2 seconds. Allow that silence, that uncomfortable void, to exist in the atmosphere. The emotional weight of that pause forces the other party to confront their expectation. Observe their immediate, unfiltered reaction. The clean no, when a request for money or a favor feels fundamentally off, state clearly, I'm not able to commit to that right now, or I don't have the capacity for that, but I hope you find a clear path through. You do not owe an explanation. The first time you deliver a clean no, you will feel internal messiness, a spike of guilt or anxiety. This feeling is the sound of the toxic, people-pleasing wire being severed. It is necessary friction. Over time, an inevitable sorting process occurs, guided by the principle Machiavelli understood. Respect follows strength. The entities who only valued you for your spontaneous generosity will slowly, predictably, and quietly fade. Awa. Let them dissolve. They were invested in your utility, not your being. The entities who truly value you as a person will adapt. They might test the new boundary once or twice, but they will stay, recognizing and respecting your new integrated strength. And most importantly, you will reclaim your spine and your financial sovereignty. Your life choices will be driven by your own strategic goals, not controlled by the fearful anticipation of who might need to borrow money next month. When you do finally decide to be generous, it will feel genuinely good again, because it flows from a position of choice, not structural debt. You will pick your strategic moments, funding your parents' special trip because you want to, giving a painful but meaningful gift to someone who needs a hand up, not a perpetual handout, and has proven they will utilize it well. That is real generosity, quiet, strategic, powerful. It does not shatter your fortress, it is built only from the abundant surplus of it. The final warning and the ethical imperative. You are not being asked to be cruel, you are being mandated to be whole. The true ethical imperative is to maintain your capacity to contribute meaningfully when it truly matters. You cannot contribute from a place of chronic exhaustion and resentment. So, when you hear the phrase, "never be generous," in this strategic context, translate it through this final life-defining filter. Never let generosity be the reason you are weak. Never let money dispensed out of fear steal the stable future you are rigorously trying to build. Never let your need to be seen as a good person override your fundamental responsibility to be a strong, sovereign person. You deserve a life where your essential kindness is not an exploitable weakness used against you. You deserve to be respected, not for how much you can give away, but for how well you have built and fiercely protected what is yours. So the next time your hand moves toward your wallet out of instinctual reflex, pause. Ask yourself this singular, critical question, allowing only the cold, hard data to inform the answer. Am I acting from a position of strength, or am I acting from a place of fear? If the answer is fear, you already know the necessary strategic action you must take to reclaim your power.